Birmingham City Council, running Britain's second largest city and the largest local authority in Europe, has, in effect, gone bankrupt. It's issued what's called a Section 114 notice, meaning the council has judged itself to be in financial distress and can no longer balance its budget. Labour-run Birmingham, which had a £760 million liability for sex discrimination cases, blamed inflation, soaring social care costs and the government for years of underfunding and predicted there was much worse to come across the UK. Here is Councillor Shaun Davies, Deputy Leader of Birmingham City Council, earlier today.
Local government is facing a perfect storm. Like councils across the country, it is clear that this council faces unprecedented financial challenges, from huge increases in adult social care demand and dramatic reductions in business rates income to the impact of rampant inflation. Sigma, who represent large local authorities, recently warned that up to 26 local authorities could issue a Section 114 notice in the next 2 financial years.
So, if Councillor Thompson is remotely right, then this is the first rumbling of a huge national issue. Birmingham will carry on funding absolutely essential services while slashing or simply stopping spending everywhere else. What will this mean for ordinary people? We will try to find out. And will central government step in? We'll try to find that out as well. Although the settlement from central government for local government in the last financial year was better than usual, over the last decade, austerity cuts imposed by Westminster stripped away £15 billion in council grants and threatens growing numbers of councils with insolvency. Councils in trouble include Labour-run ones like Birmingham, but also parts of true blue Tory England, including Kent and Hampshire. Later in the show, we're going to hear about some of the other big challenges for the country, not much discussed in Westminster. I'll be talking to the former head of MI6, Sir Richard Dearlove, about what a second Donald Trump presidency might mean for the Ukraine war and therefore for our security too. And we'll hear a chilling warning about spyware which may be forced onto our phones and laptops in an expansion of British government surveillance. But frankly, folks, the council cash crisis seems to me the biggest here and now story of the day. So let's start with Councillor Shaun Davies.
Non-statutory, non-essential spending is stopped, which means that things like supporting vulnerable people around their council tax or street cleaning or economic development or certain parts of housing or school transport, all of those things.
So street cleaning is not statutory?
So there are different elements of it. So clearly there is a statutory element, but also there's many
They have to clear the bins, don't they?
Most councils will go above and beyond what they have to do. So all of those things will be either stopped or reviewed, and the council will then continue to fund those statutory services, which include things like safeguarding children and adult social care. In terms of Section 114 notices, Birmingham is the 8th council since 2018 to declare a Section 114. Before 2010, just one council declared a Section 114. As you said in your introduction, other councils are indicating this. It's as a result of the funding that's been reduced by government over the last 10 years, but also the issues we are facing now. Just to stand still, just to support and provide the support services that we are providing at the moment, requires an additional £3 billion this year. That's because of things like contractual inflation going up, general inflation, staff pay and other things too. Local government over the last decade or more has had more cuts than any Whitehall department, and local councils and local government have been having to deal with that year in, year out. What's different, Andrew, here is that the amount of demand that is coming through our front door, whether that be adult social care, safeguarding of children, resettling people from Afghanistan or people overseas, together with all the other issues, is a perfect storm for councils. And in previous years, you could look to make efficiencies, you could look to transform your services, you could look to use reserves, but all of those things for many councils across the country have been used once, and you can only use them once.
You've got an overview. What's your assessment of the number of other councils now in trouble?
There are a number of councils that are on the brink of Section 114, either this financial year or the next financial year.
You say a number. What number?
Well, I haven't got an exact number to hand. There are different councils taking different mitigations right now, but lots of councils in year, they set their budget in April. In year, they are having to find efficiencies because things like inflation just hasn't come down as quickly as was predicted.
Conservatives are already pointing the finger at Birmingham in particular and the huge amount of money they owe over the sex discrimination cases, and that is clearly a big part of their trouble. But is this something that affects councils of all political stripes?
Without a doubt, all councils, all sizes, all geographies, all political control have either been affected by a 114 notice themselves or are on the brink of it. This is not a party political issue for local government. We want to work with the government to find a long-term financial sustainable funding model for local government so that local services can be protected. But also, Andrew, we can get on with the Prime Minister's priorities. Things like local economic growth will not be delivered without local authorities. Things like fixing the NHS backlogs will not be fixed if adult social care has not been delivered. Kids won't get to school if school transport is being reduced. All of the things that real people rely on are delivered by councils.
Is this a bit like the RAC concrete scandal or problem in schools? Another example of austerity coming home to roost.
The capacity and the funding that's been removed from local government over the last 14 years is without a doubt an issue here. Demand is going up in terms of adult social care, demand's going up in child social care, demand's going up in terms of homelessness, and funding it simply is not keeping pace.
So, in short, from your point of view, this is not a Birmingham story, though it clearly is a Birmingham story, it's a national story.
It's a national story of local government not being funded both to the tune that it needs to be, but also more and more demands coming through our front door at a time when it's very, very difficult. Like every household who are seeing the cost of living crisis, councils are seeing the cost of operating crisis, and we want to work with the government both to put local government on a sustainable footing, but also configure local government so we can deliver the priorities that they want from here in Westminster, but also local services for local people.